to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you could please join me in a moment of silence. Okay, thank you. All right, I will entertain a motion for the approval of the October 30th school board meeting minutes.
So moved.
By Suzanne, do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ben. Do we have any changes, discussion, edits, omissions? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes as presented?
Aye. Abstain.
Abstains, opposed, and then abstentions? I've got 2, 3 abstentions. All set, Denise?
Yeah, who besides?
I've got
Ben.
Jenny abstaining, Ben and Philip.
Oh, okay,
abstaining.
thank you.
Okay. I will likewise entertain a motion for the approval of the November 4th, 2013 school board meeting minutes.
So moved.
So moved by Ben. Do I have a second? By Hank. Any changes? Discussion? Edits? Seeing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. 6. So 6 opposed? Abstentions? 1, 2, 3. 3 abstentions. That would now be Dan, Jenny, and Philip.
Thank you.
All right. Correspondence folder.
In the correspondence folder this evening, you have a letter from a New Boston parent who is here this evening. This is Catherine Boscia, and she is requesting the board reconsider some of the athletic policies, specifically pertaining to New Boston's 6th graders' ability to participate in cut sports and other activities at Mountain View. I'm happy to give more information if the board would like. I do believe Catherine is planning on making public comment as well, so could also allow her to speak for herself. But that is in the correspondence folder, as are 2 substitute reports.
Thank you. I also did just want to let you know that I received a call from Selectman Nick Camposano. Apparently there are, he's working with a group of residents with a project to try to improve communications throughout the town, maybe come up with some locations where they can put some signs. What he was asking of me was if there was any interest in maybe splitting the cost of an LCD sign at Bartlett, where we could, of course, use it for our messages. It would be one of those signs that, like, every 15 minutes the message would change, or you can program it to change as frequently or infrequently as you would like. If that would be something we could do, where sometimes it would be a school message and then other times it would be a community message. So he was wondering if there would be interest. We don't really have a dollar amount yet. I am told that it's about $10,000 for an entire sign, but we don't have an entire sign, so we don't really have a lot of that information to go on. But the inquiry really was if there was any interest in speaking.
I think it's a good idea.
I would also wonder if, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right, go ahead, and I'll get Ginny next. Go ahead.
I wonder if the relocation at the same time of just the sign itself would be something we could consider if we go that way.
Ginny?
I have 2 questions. One, who would have oversight of what would go on it? And I very rarely go through Bernardville, so Bartlett School wouldn't be really helpful for a lot of people who go down the back road to work in Manchester in the morning. So, in my opinion, there would be a lot of people that, one sign wouldn't be helpful for.
Yeah, they're looking at numerous signs, and I think we would need to work out the oversight. And certainly, it would probably be some direction that would be coming from the Bartlett office as far as the sign changes. Yeah, I mean, the ability to change the sign, I'm sure the controls would be located within. That was what I meant. But again, this is just exploratory if it's something we even want to talk about. Ben, did you have states?
I think it's a good idea to look into it. I mean, to see what we have, and you see the 10,000. How many? The
question is, how many signs do you get for $10,000?
This would just be the one.
One.
This would just be the one. Yeah, no. The inquiry
one
for
that's
us
not
was
installed.
exclusively the one located at our school. That was exclusive. So I'll just touch base and let him know that it's something we're open to speaking about as we move further.
Looking at it next agenda.
Let me see where he wants to go, because he's still in they're still in their exploratory phase as well.
If I could just add one thing, I would agree with Dan. I think the location of the sign, and I'm guessing that Mr. Labor would share this as well. The driveway relocation project that we cut out of the budget this year included moving that sign and extending the drive down. So I think that would be the only thing that we would probably put forth would just be to be cognizant of moving that sign.
All right.
Question for you.
What do you got?
Does that include the installation?
Again, this was just an inquiry. Will you guys even talk about it? Is it something you're interested in? So my sense would be yes. That
get
this
more
is a total, but I
For me?
don't.
No.
I don't know. So, all right. Accommodations, good news.
I can start.
All right.
Okay, from Maple Avenue. Last Friday we had our Spirit Day, and it was Mustache and Beard Day, which is kind of humorous. There was a lot of participation among staff and students. Everybody had a great time, and we heard a lot of comments that it was the best Spirit Day we'd had. We had paper mustaches, little stick-on fuzzy mustaches, drawn-on mustaches, full beards. It was a lot of fun. We're also running a food drive this month to benefit the Goffstown Network Food Pantry, and last year we donated over 1,200 items, so we're hoping to beat that this year. This Thursday will be the annual Thanksgiving feast with the Goffstown Police Department and Fire Department serving the food. A thank you to our parent group who pays for the feast and the food service staff who prepares it every year. Bartlett had its annual turkey walk on Friday the 15th. And that is to support the Goffstown Food Network. An officer from the Goffstown Police Department and several parents joined the walk along Mass Road to Roosevelt Street and through the neighborhood behind the school. The children returned to their classrooms to find delicious cinnamon rolls and apple juice. And everyone who participated was encouraged to bring a non-perishable food item to donate to the Food Network. On December 13th, Bartlett's fourth graders will be visiting the Edward Roy Apartments for caroling. And after singing, the students will share refreshments with the senior citizens there. Bartlett will have a whole school read. Will be a book called 29 Fairmont Avenue, a chapter book by Tommy DePaolo. And each family and staff member will get a copy of the book along with a suggested reading schedule and activities. And Bartlett tries to do 2 whole school reads every year. And Glen Lake. The Glen Lake staff hosted a family math and science night last Wednesday, and they had over 370 people in attendance. Impressive. That's it.
That's great. Thank you.
Okay, at the high school, the Leo's Club recently did their twice-yearly trash pickup along their adopted road, which is Elm Street, from Glen Lake School to the transfer station. So they put a lot of work into that. The Environmental Club is working on developing a composting system in the cafeteria here, and a few other projects. National Honor Society is organizing their annual blood drive for this Wednesday, the 20th. And GOAL, the Goffstown Athletic Leadership Council, has started organizing for the Penguin Plunge in February. December 15th, they will be hosting a bowling tournament and fundraiser for the plunge at Spare Time in Manchester from 1 to 5 p.m. Last year, they raised $6,500 for Special Olympics and for our team on Canunek. And this year, the group's goal is to raise about $8,000. Anyone interested in donating or participating in the Penguin Plunge or the bowling event should contact Kelly Rosamek or Nancy Kelleher here at GHS. The Goffstown Library has formed, the GHS Library has formed a committee to prepare for the 50th anniversary of the high school. They'll be working together to develop events and projects that will culminate in a big winter carnival celebration in 2016. We're hoping to have a lot of disciplines represented in the celebratory efforts. And then today we had report cards went out in the homeroom, and we're still developing our homerooms as advisory classes rather than just, they've in the past been just where we hand out paperwork and the kids just go. And now they're 20 minutes long, and we talk to the kids more about how they're doing and how they can improve their grades and stuff. And today we talked about community service and volunteer opportunities and stuff like that. So it's going pretty well.
That's great, thank you.
For Mountain View, we had our Veterans Day Assembly on November 8th, and we had actually a parent of one of our students, and she did such a great job that there were quite a bit of staff that came up to me and said that's one of the best speeches we've heard. So that went over really well with the kids and the staff. Went to the Monarchs game last week. All the students had a wonderful time. This Thursday, November 21st, the members of the 7th and 8th grade performing groups will be taking a trip to see the Boston Symphony Orchestra practice. And the drama company is going to be visiting the elementary school soon to perform The Princess and the Princess. They will also have a night performance on November 26th at 7 p.m. Student government attended the Stand Up to Bullying conference on November 15th, this past Friday, and it's an anti-bullying conference at UNH. And we brought about 10 students. The students met some incredible people who overcame being bullied and received a lot of information to bring back to Mountain View. Right now we're trying to figure out how to get that all the knowledge out to the students. We did have the reporter there from the newspaper for our Mountain View newspaper, and she's going to write up 2 articles, one about the conference and one about her experience from one of the people that kind of inspired her. We also have, this is Anti-Bullying Week, so on Wednesday, November 20th, we're going to wear blue, and we brought back bracelets for everyone that say, see a bully, stop a bully, stand up to bullying. There are all different phrases on them, and then they're going to sign a banner saying that they're against bullying and get a bracelet. And we also have stand-up arrows that we're going to sell, and the proceeds are going to go to the food bank. And it's just kids writing what they stand up for, and then we're going to put it in the hilltop. Last year we did something similar with stars, and we did it from Make-A-Wish. So now we're kind of incorporating the anti-bullying in there. Our annual non-perishable food drive kicks off today. We will be collecting them from now until November 26th, and our goal is 2,013 cans or items. We're also selling Life is Great t-shirts. It says, Life is great, education makes it better, and they have a pencil, a notebook, and an apple on it. It's kind of on the basis of the Life is Good t-shirts. So we're going to sell those for $15, and whatever the profit is, small profit is going to go to the food pantry as well. And we're selling those until the 26th, and then we're going to place an order and give them out.
Very cool, thank you.
Very cool. All right, so we had our Veterans Day Assembly, which is always a big event. We had 25 veterans, I believe, come, and each member on student council, if they signed up to speak, said a little piece about them. And after I talked to one of the gentlemen who was a veteran, and he said that this was Goffstown High School holds the best Veterans Day Assembly, and it gives them the welcome home they never got. And he said that from visiting other schools, Goffstown High School has inspired them to start Veterans Day programs, so that's just a really good compliment to Goffstown High School. With Thanksgiving coming up, Student Ambassadors has their Thanksgiving basket committee. This year we're making 11 baskets for different families that Miss Sanderson connects through. And it's done anonymously. We don't know who they are, but they go and help people. Crispin's House had their annual event, and the Agents of Change received an award for their anti-bullying movie, Stand Up. And they played it there. Some student ambassadors went, other kids went. There's a wide variety of people there. It was a nice showing, and they definitely deserve the award. And that's it.
That's great, thank you. Anybody else?
Just amazed at the cool things that are going on.
Yeah.
All the community outreach is amazing.
Yep.
All good stuff.
Awesome job, you guys.
All right, so we'll move on to public comment. Do we have public comment this evening? All right, I'm just going to ask you if you can state your name for the record as well as your address. Sure. I did want to let you know per our policy that we limited our public comment to 3 minutes. and typically speaking, it's not an exchange. You're welcome to sit at the table. Thank you.
My name is Catherine Boscia. I reside at 26 Bogsbrook Road in New Boston. And I'm here tonight. I did submit a letter, which I hope all of you had the opportunity to read in advance of my speaking. I'm here tonight to talk about, or at least request that you begin to examine the policy which currently is in place, primarily regarding athletics, but there are other co-curricular or extracurricular programs that I think also fall into this. And that is to consider allowing New Boston sixth graders to participate like their Goffstown sixth grade peers are able to. What's unique about this situation, I see, is that currently with the middle school, your sports teams are not segregated between 5th and 6th grade sports teams and 7th and 8th grade sports teams. Rather, you allow 6th graders to try out for the same sports that 7th and 8th graders play for and designate them as an A or a B team. And it seems that in the last at least year, possibly more, that there's been some more focus on making the transition between New Boston to Goffstown, between the 6th graders that are incoming then in 7th grade, trying to have a little bit more sense of camaraderie with their peers. I think recently you're even looking at right now whether or not Goffstown 6th graders should attend Camp Sargent, and I would ask you to, in that same light that you're looking at whether that would be beneficial, to also look at whether this policy maybe would be beneficial too. It would allow those students to have some interaction with each other, because in another year they certainly will in the hallways and likely on the sports fields. So what I'm looking at here is not obviously opening up the policy to allow any student to try out from any other school district. It's specifically the ones that will be coming in because of the anticipated area agreement. One of the important things that I would ask that you focus on is not necessarily what you will lose by doing this. What I'm asking that you focus on is what you will have to gain. I'll give you a good example. This year, the girls' soccer team fielded an A team. They had plenty of players for a B team, and in fact, they made a B team. But unfortunately, there wasn't any coaching for a B team. There wasn't anyone that came forward that could coach. So the B team ended up not being able to play this season. So you had an A team, you had enough kids for a B team, and then you had cuts, obviously. What I'm saying is for you to consider that if 6th graders from New Boston had been able to try out this year, there would have been a whole new pool to look at for volunteers, for coaching, and for definitely interested people that would want to see that unit stay together. You would have had other players trying out who then have relations to coaches and a whole support network that right now you don't have because that group is segregated out and not allowed to try out. So what I'm asking is that you look at that as a benefit. You would have had the opportunity to possibly field the B team if maybe you had included 1 or 2 kids from New Boston if they had made the team. And instead what happened is everybody lost out. You didn't have a B team. So whether it was 15 Goffstown kids and 3 New Boston kids didn't get to play this year for that very reason, that you didn't have enough ability to coach. That's just one example of maybe how including New Boston will give you more opportunity instead of less. So I'd ask that you look at it from that perspective rather than the question which typically gets asked was, well, then what happens when a Goffstown kid has to get cut in favor of a New Boston kid who doesn't even go to this school? And if that happens, I think that plays into part of the policy then, the policies that I've cited in my letter, that of course you want to field a competitive team, you want to field teams that begin to learn about the value of competition, the value of some of those hard choices where if you didn't make the team, you didn't make the team.
I'm sorry, I need to ask you to wrap up.
Sure. I'd wrap up by saying what we're looking for, or what I'm looking for, is the opportunity. What that means is the ability to participate, of all the kids that may try out, let's not forget, these are usually cut positions, whether it's sports or auditions for the drama productions. So that means of the numbers of kids that try out, the few that make it, whether they're from New Boston or not, are still only a few. So all the kids that try out don't necessarily get to make it. So you need to consider that, obviously, in the expense piece.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any other further public comments?
May I make one comment?
We're really not looking to be in an exchange, but...
I'm not making it as an exchange.
Okay. Sometimes I know we can digress.
It's just way back when I believe it was Dunbarton back then asked for similar participation. What we found is by the time their kids got here, practice was almost over.
Okay.
It took them so long to get here.
Well, I remember, too, we did address it
Absolutely.
a few years ago as it pertained to that.
And it wasn't, I don't think anybody wanted to exclude anybody. It just, logistically, we couldn't seem to make it work.
Thank you. All right. Seeing no further public comment, we'll go into our standing committee reports, please. Policy review. You have a meeting coming up.
Yes.
Monday, next Monday, 6 o'clock at the SAU.
Yes.
And that is one of the major ones of the year, as far as what the curriculum, am I correct?
Yes.
Now, I'm thinking CNA, not policy review. Gotcha.
I know we should have a couple of things on the agenda for policy.
Perfect, thank you. Pete,
Should be
go
more
ahead.
if you guys direct us to do more. So.
Okay. This is one of your first of the year, though, right? Yeah.
It's the first one since I've come back. And said.
Okay. B and C.
I was not there, Diane, and would you mind giving an update?
You know what? We haven't met since last time, and I did give an update. But
Okay,
we did
great.
get
Thank you.
we did get a letter out regarding the upcoming special election on December 4th. C and E, Miss Jenny.
Our next meeting is on the 25th at 7 p.m. at the SAU, and it is, as you were saying, our kind of wrap-up meeting where the principals come. There's a lot of really good information that's exchanged. Anybody who is available, it is a public meeting as well, but any of you who would like to hear some really great feedback from all of our principals, it's a great meeting to be at. And we normally invite Dunbarton and the Boston school boards to be present as well.
All right, thank you. Budget Committee. Budget Committee has met a couple times since we met last because, of course, we're getting into our exciting season. We've heard presentations from the town. We will do so again on Wednesday. As far as the school goes, we've had one night of presentations last Tuesday in which Brian presented the district budget along with Ray. We had Frank and Kim on hand to discuss the high school budget. Gary Gerolman addressed the tech budget. Jerry Abbott started, but I think he'll be up on this coming Thursday, we expect to address Mountain View Middle School, and I would think then the facilities, Jerry. And then on tap will, of course, be Bartlett, Maple Ave, and Glen Lake, but I don't know that we will get to them on Thursday. But that's what we are looking to work towards. Ray does have hard copies of the budget that was sent to the Budget Committee. If anybody would like a refreshed version, this would be the one after we made our changes that got delivered to the Budget Committee, and you expect to have an electronic copy tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So Ray does have the hard copies if you would like them tonight. Otherwise, as I stated, next meeting of Budget Committee this Wednesday and Thursday. Anna.
The Administration and Finance Group met this evening right at that table at 6:45, and the subcommittee would like to bring a manifest of $2,674,300.96 as a motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Oh, seconded by Philip. Continue, Dan. Any discussion?
I would like to give you a little particulars. We had payroll and payroll taxes along with a health trust payment. Health trust payment was only $138,000 because that includes the credit that was given to us. So the net of those were $774,411. We had SPED activity, which included the Lighthouse School, transportation, Parker Academy, and Wadico for $61,904. GE Capital was the first payments on the teachers, the new laptop lease. Goffstown Truck Center, we had made 2 payments, $5,700 for Voc Ed transportation from here to Manchester, and another $85.67 for October athletics. Now, if you did some math real quick, you said, how the heck did you get to $2.674 million? Well, New Boston made a payment to us of $1.5 million, but it didn't include the credit that we had negotiated for the return of the incorrect Teresian payment from previously, so we are sending that back, and once they get it back, they'll write us a new check for the new amount. That includes the $2.674 million.
Okay. Do you have any questions? Further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the manifest as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
We are unanimous, thank you. Elementary facilities, anything new, Ray?
There has been no meeting scheduled yet.
Okay. I know you were going to get together with Tony. Have you been able to? No, that's what you're trying to do?
We have gotten together. It's just a case of trying to round up the committee members from the old group to see whether or not they can all get together on the same evening. We've not been successful in doing that.
Thank you for your efforts. I know you're putting a lot into that. Thank you. Goffstown Dunbarton committee report. The MOU that we approved was also approved by the Dunbarton board, so we are all set as far as that goes. And we have no further meetings at this time, although I would expect there to be some business down the line as far as little particulars and whatnot that come into play as we go. Dan, you had a question?
Can we drop that off the agenda now?
I don't see why not.
I already made a note to do so.
Because really, unless
It's done.
It's done.
Yes.
So
We will be adding a new one, hopefully, after December 4th.
of course you may. All right, the SAU Executive Officers of Superintendent Search Committee report. I understand this Wednesday as well?
Yes, 20th, yes.
You had a meeting?
We did. And we interviewed 4 potential candidates or firms to do help assist us with the search. And we did decide going with the New Hampshire School Board Association. So at this particular upcoming meeting, we're going to actually work with them, and we're going to come up with our timeline and as to who we're going to try to invite to be part of the search committee.
Super. All right. Thank you. This brings us to our superintendent report.
I'd like to begin with a little bit of bad news. If folks hadn't heard, Leslie Doster had fallen and pretty badly broke her wrist. So she's been out most of last week, I think all of last week, and is going to be out for a few more days. She did have surgery, and she had a plate put into her wrist, but she is such an important part of Glen Lake School that they've been doing the best they can in her absence. Cappy Stoyle and Gail and all the team has done a great job stepping up, but I just wanted board members to be aware. I think a couple of you had known that, but she's doing well, but did have a pretty bad break that she's dealing with. Regarding Sergeant Camp, the gentleman who is the director of Sergeant Camp, Larry Chambers, will be at Mountain View in the afternoon of November 20th, and he will be meeting with all of the teachers in 6th grade. Next steps beyond that is Mountain View teachers are going to Sergeant Camp to observe the program. They actually will be able to go when kids of a different school are there, but to be able to go and see the program. And then next steps will include conducting an interest survey for parents and getting a sense of parents' level of interest in the program, including looking at Sergeant Camp does a one-day field trip as a possibility. So even if we didn't have kids or a lot of kids who were able to do the overnight activity, we still might be able to do a one-day type of agreement And the school will be looking into fundraising to offset the costs. Last week, Pam Clark, Dr. Pam Clark, who's a consultant that's been working with SIU 19 for many years around our supervision and evaluation model, and MC and a team of teachers and administrators from New Boston and Goffstown presented at the School Administrators Association Best Practices Workshop. They did a great job. They presented our model of supervision and evaluation that focuses on goals rather than hours, and it was well received by the people there. Your first legislative update, final drafts have been completed of legislation, and all the bills are moving on to legislative services at this point. Just a couple of highlights that we have been made aware of that we'll be watching very closely include privacy. It's our understanding that Neil Kurt from Ware has submitted at least a bill that focuses on the confidentiality and privacy of student information, so we'll be very curious about that. That's something we care a great deal about. We understand that there's a new bill being proposed on restraints of students in schools, another bill focusing on suicide prevention, which would require all school districts to have a suicide policy adopted by the local school board. This would be probably in many ways similar to the bullying law, 193F. And lastly, on the legislative sense, we understand that there are several bills focusing on the Common Core state standards, which include delaying Common Core. It includes requiring a local vote. So what we've heard is that there will likely be several laws that will work their way through the process focused on Common Core. My last area of update is here at the high school. I updated the board at your last meeting that we had water damage in the gym. The gym floor is being repaired. There are two pretty big sections that had to be cut out, removed, and replaced. This is a sad thing because the floor just looked great after it was replaced, and at this point, the paint's not going to be the same. The stain won't be the same. It's definitely going to look different. But more importantly is the water issues that led to the gym problem. Today, Ray and I had the chance to meet with Mr. McBride, Jerry Agate, Carl from DPW, and Megan from DPW, as well as an engineer from Meridian and is a Goffstown resident and parent named Jay Heavysides. And he is a civil engineer, and we essentially looked at options for drainage mitigation. What do we have available to us? What could we look at for projects? And we sat and looked at the plans. We went out and walked the perimeter of the building, looking at the different areas of drainage issue. And the recommendation that we'd like to make to the board is to consider conducting a drainage study. Now, I had mentioned this a couple months ago, and the original estimates that we were thinking a drainage study might be was in the neighborhood of $25,000. In consultation with the team today, we believe that number is probably much closer to 10. So between, I think, $8,000 and $10,000, the thinking is that we could have a comprehensive drainage study done. Carl had indicated that there might be some state grant monies available. We know that the possibility still exists through the police department looking at the FEMA grant. We think that having a drainage study done would leave us better prepared for a grant, and it would be another piece that we could submit. The other piece that we would look at on a drainage study would be to consider a modular type approach to the mitigation efforts, so that we might look at multiple phases based on the different areas of the building that we could add to CIP, and then as funds were available, we could do phase 1, we could do phase 2, we could do phase 3, with an overall vision of how we would go about mitigating the ongoing water issues here. And hopefully, if in fact we could get the water problems corrected, when we have a couple years of experience without flooding, we're hoping that that $40,000 the board will remember that our property and liability insurance was just raised would be able to go back down. So at this point, and I might ask Ray if he had anything to add, but we're obviously very concerned about the water issues here at the high school. And another piece is when we look at the back parking lot, I had the opportunity today at the end of the day to watch the dismissal of kids walking across the parking lot, cars coming from two directions, buses coming. It is a pretty unsafe situation. Mr. LaValle does a nice job directing traffic out there, but there are days where he isn't able to be there if something is occurring. Part of this water mitigation problem would be to look at other ways of affecting the traffic flow of the back of the school. So I think that we could tie in the drainage issues along with the traffic issues and potentially come up with a much better solution that corrects our water problems and also makes the back of the school a safer place to get in and out of for our kids. So at this point, I would recommend that the board consider, not typically something we would do during a superintendent's report, but fresh off the meeting this afternoon that Ray and I had, be happy to bring more information back if the board would like to hear.
I have two questions. The first one has to do with the replacement of the damage on the gym floor. My understanding on our insurance is when damage occurs, we're restoring it to prior condition. My understanding is if we're not matching the stain, we're not matching the paint, shouldn't we be doing more of the floor or stripping of the existing floor and make everything match?
I met with the flooring gentleman today. Jerry and I went down to check on his progress. He's doing a nice job. It's the same vendor that put the floor in last time, so it's actually the same installer. He's going to match the paint and the stain up as close as he can. I don't think it's going to be. I don't think he'll be able to get it spot on. I think he'll see that there was a patch done on the two sections of the floor.
Well,
I think that
I guess I wouldn't call that satisfactory. It wouldn't be restored to previous conditions. Shouldn't the insurance company then make remedies so that it looks proper? Is my concern.
Thoughts on that,
I don't know if
Ray?
that's reasonable. I mean, I think it's real. I
Yeah.
understand what you're saying as far as an insurance policy goes. You're absolutely right, going back to
Previous
a
condition.
previous condition or original condition, depending on how your policy is phrased. But as far as a repair of this, I mean, I don't think we're talking about blue paint versus red paint, and I think we're.
But, for example, let's say something happens with vinyl siding damage on the house. They don't just patch it because vinyl siding fades. They would use a whole facade.
That would be the whole floor then.
In this particular case, I believe that would be it.
Or it might be up until there's a line of delineation, but so that you didn't have pieces matching. Keith makes an interesting point, and he's actually spot on, as it were. But there may be other things that go into the calculus of making that decision.
Like basketball season.
Is that what it is?
My concern is, before we sign off on saying we accept the repairs, I think we really need to evaluate if the repairs are to our satisfaction.
And no question there, absolutely.
I don't think your satisfaction makes a difference. I do think the contract makes a difference. And whoever the insurer is would actually be able to entertain and respond to that line of inquiry for you. Yeah.
Ray, would you be comfortable contacting them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they'll recognize the inquiry,
Yeah.
I think, and we'll be able to thoughtfully respond and sort of maybe be able to suggest some options.
Another interesting point was when we were meeting with the flooring company today, we were talking about, I wanted to take a look at the substructure underneath the floor, so he was able to show us. Essentially, you have a slab with a plastic sheet, and then there are a series of sort of floating subfloors that are about 18 inches apart. Yep. And there's a rubber membrane that goes underneath them. There's a new technology that I'm interested in learning more about that you can run. It's almost like plastic conduit that goes down through in between each of these sections. And it's a pipe that has little holes in it, and there are blowers that you can attach, and it essentially blows air when the humidity level underneath the floor reaches a certain point. So it's almost like a floor dryer from underneath. So there are some technologies that I think we haven't fully investigated or considered, because the question is, apart from the flood that happened, is there water coming up through the floor, through the slab during the year? And that's the part that the flooring guy said that he noticed there were screws that were rusted. So that would lead me to believe that there's at least enough moisture in there to rust those screws, which wouldn't have happened with just a water intrusion.
I could probably give you a bit of information on that. When we replaced the floor after the initial flood, we did not have that subfloor system. That was added in at that point. And I don't believe, are these nails in that subfloor, is what you're saying? Well, then that was put in 7 years ago.
So anyhow, it's
But
just
my
something
understanding
we're
was the reason
something we're
why
looking
was
at.
that the water, if it came up through the floor or anything, couldn't damage the floor above because of the fact that you had those grooves. There was, space for it to go. So I'd be curious to find out if we made a wrong decision on the subfloor.
Oh, I think having a subfloor was absolutely the right thing to do. There are a couple of different options of how the subfloor could have been done, but I think it had a function to do with the height.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was
That was our biggest
a
limitation.
better model, but you didn't want to go up too high.
Mm-hmm. That is correct.
So what is the next step as far as trying to determine the water and the drainage?
Well, what Ray and I would like to propose is the board would consider conducting a drainage study and allow us to have a professionally done, multifaceted plan that would look at the drainage and in concert with potentially changing the entrance and exit of that back parking lot, which is all connected to the drainage. Remember, it's that back parking lot with the pitch, the drive right towards the building. That's a major contributing factor to the water issue we have. That would be our recommendation. If the board was interested in doing this, we would put together an RFP. It is an RFP that we would likely ask Carl and Megan from the DPW if they would help us in developing. It's a level of complexity for an RFP that we're not drainage experts, so we want to make sure we write it correctly, but that would be what we would propose. I think it's a big enough of an issue. It's now going to cost us an extra $40,000 a year on our insurance. Let's come up with a really good plan before we start putting a shovel in the ground out there trying to solve our problems.
So the scope of the RFP is limited to an examination and a recommendation?
It would be, exactly, it would be to conduct, and again, not being an expert in this area, Philip, but they would go through and conduct a series of analyses that would look at different storm events. So they would look at all of the impervious surfaces, they'd calculate the rain rates, how much runoff occurs, where the runoff can go, and then they would give us a series of recommendations of what we could do to correct it. I think intuitively, we've been out there enough times and have looked around and say, well, we think we could dig out this, we think we could put a berm in here, but to really go through and study it and go through all of the mathematical calculations before we invest any time or money into fixing something that may not be the best approach.
I'd make a motion to approve the development of an RFP for the purposes of examining the drainage issue behind the school. Is that comprehensive enough?
Right?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Ben. Dan, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. Now, as I saw, it was a two-step process. One, did you actually need us to motion to actually produce the RFP? Because we haven't approved the RFP. We've just we're going to discuss issuing the RFP. Then the responses would come back to this board for us then to approve the awarding. That would be the second step, I would presume. That motion did not include awarding the RFP, correct?
It didn't. No,
we would
we'd have to have a response.
We would bring that back to the board.
Step
I think
one.
just because it's potentially, $10,000 is a fair amount of money, I would feel more comfortable with having the board's direction really
To
clear.
prepare the RFP and go
Yeah.
for it. Sure.
All right, so I have a motion on the table. Any further questions? Discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
We're unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, that was all I had.
That's all you have for superintendent's report? All right, so we move on to old business, the Lions Club agreement.
Mr. Gross is here. Thank you for being here this evening, Scott. To provide a little context, Scott's going to come up and join us.
Perfect, please.
What we have here is the agreement that has been through, I think there's one here for you too, Ray. This is an agreement that Scott has worked on along with the Lions Club board. As the board is aware, to look at the shifting relationship of the current Lions field, instead of having us essentially pay a rental charge for that use of that facility, this agreement changes the nature of the relationship, and essentially we take over all of the operational elements. This is significantly to the school district's favor in that with the school district responsible for the field, the mowing, which is about $5,000 annually of mowing, will be done by Parks and Recs. They've been a part of this process. They're in support of this project, and it will continue the same relationship with Tri-Town Soccer, which is exceptionally important to the Lions Club board. That Tri-Town would still have access to the fields in their current situation. This has been vetted through legal, so our attorney has provided input on the agreement that we've worked with between Mr. Gross, Mr. Labor, and myself. So I might welcome Mr. Gross's thoughts and comments.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, just as a recap, we've been meeting for 6 months, or if not more. As some of you might have read in the newspaper, the Lions Club is taking a strong look at Lions Field, predominantly because it's been a significant drain on our club's finances. In case some of you don't know, the primary goal of a Lions Club internationally is to promote ways to help people with vision and hearing impairments. And we do that as a local club. We also do, as you know, the 4 $1,000 scholarships for graduating seniors and a host of other community things. But what we've seen over the last 3, 4, 5 years is that more and more of our money is going towards Lions Field, and less of our money is going towards people with hearing problems and vision problems. So with that, we've been having a discussion at our board of directors level about what can we do to try to mitigate some of this. And the one thing that we came up with was the notion of potentially selling Lions Field. We want to get out of the business of managing the field. It's quite a bit of work, and it's quite a bit of money. So one of the things that we deliberated on was the potential of selling Lions Field, and if we could get a decent chunk of money for it, as was reported, we would endeavor to donate that money to the town of Goffstown so they could build the athletic complex, which is near the transfer station. So I don't know if you've ever seen that plan. If you haven't, it's at Parks and Rec, but it's a very, very large facility. It would be very centralized. And if for those of you who've been at Lions Field, as you know, it's a dirt driveway. It has short left and right field lines. It's not really an optimum place. It's good, but I think it could be better. So that said, we are exploring the idea of potentially selling it, and we need some additional time in which to investigate that. Getting an appraisal, we might do some preliminary drawings to try to market that property. So we're not really sure what direction that's going to go in. So this short-term agreement, which is 18 months, gives us that opportunity as a board and as a club to determine where our path is. That being said, we're committed to the school district. We've been a partner for decades. We're very committed to Tri-Town Soccer, who put in a lot of money into the upper soccer fields and to the community at large. So the most prevalent thing that I would say, or common theme, is that we want to do right by the community first. I don't envision anything happening for probably 3, 4, 5 years if we ever were even to sell it. So that being the case, Brian and Ray, we've met with Rick Wilhelmi, folks from Tri-Town, the Parks and Rec Commission, board representatives. So I think we've done a pretty good job of trying to vet it out. We have a really good relationship as it is. This is kind of maybe memorializes some points. So, and the fact that your attorney only had a few little housekeeping things, I felt pretty good that I think we covered most of what the issues were.
Does anyone have any questions? Oh, yeah.
I only have 2.
Next.
Item 14, Scott, talks about paying $2,500 a day before the agreement goes into effect.
Yeah, I can explain that. We ordinarily...
I know what it's for,
Yeah.
but it bothers me that it's in this contract and it's not how we normally do it. Don't we just pay you $2,500 for the use of the field for the 6 months?
You pay us $5.
And at the end of the year?
It's generally, Ray, it's right, isn't it more generally towards the end of your school year?
It is, yes.
Yeah. So what this does, Dan, is this captures the fact that we've been paying for the fertilization, the mowing from our Lions Club year, which starts, in June. So.
I understand what it is. You know how detailed I can get sometimes. If the agreement doesn't start till January 1, how do you affect the December 31st payment? That's what bothers me, and I'm surprised if the attorney didn't say anything. So that was that piece.
No, Dan,
Actually,
it
it's from
says
July
2,500 by December
Did I-
31st, 2013. This is the cost for use of the field from July 1, 2013 to December 31, 2013.
Right. No,
But
So
the
that's
agreement
behind the
begins.
6 months.
But the agreement begins on January 1.
the agreement begins January 1, 2014. So by the time the agreement begins, you're late with your payment. See what I'm saying?
No.
Not necessarily, because I think if your board adopts it, one thing I want to be clear about is that
It's not a disagreement on the payment.
Yeah, we've been operating, I think, 4 decades without, I don't think, anything. So I think as long as there was a recognition, if you want to change the date to January 1 or 10 or 31st, I'm really not going to be upset if you want to do that. I just want there to be the recognition that we figured that half of the year kind of went by, and if you could pay for half of the year, and then we'll try to start fresh. I'm good. We're not here to make any waves.
So that's to pay for your expenses this year, whereas
Correct. Yeah.
January 1st
You got
is
it.
next year.
Yep.
So I don't understand. If we're paying for 2013 expenses in 2013,
This contract is a 2014 contract.
It's
Well-
Dan's point simply is this, I think, and Dan, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's a perfectly reasonable point, but I think to what Scott said, this is an artifact of when the agreement will be in effect as opposed to something specific. The district will pay for the use of the field, which it has done, for the period between July and the end of the year, which it would typically do, and that's captured in an agreement that goes forward and doesn't require that payment because we'll be undertaking the upkeep. Okay, all this does is it captures the upkeep for half a year. Is
almost definitely
correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I said, you want to change the date by a day or 30 days, I'm fine with that.
So that it occurs during the life of the contract.
Yeah.
Did I see another question? Oh, you're good?
No, I actually,
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear on something. The reason for the inclusion of Parks and Recreation is because of the role they play in the maintenance? Or is it because they'll also be using the fields?
The role they'll play in the maintenance.
Okay. That's what I thought. And there was one.
I will also, when you talk to folks like Rick, our director, and Mike Garrett, who's our groundskeeper, right now the system is that we use an independent contractor to mow the lawns. And there has to be a lot of communication. As you know, when you have a baseball game, you want to make sure that the grass is cut a certain way, that the field gets lined. And it used to work out pretty well when Parks and Rec did the whole thing. And then when we split it up, the grass was too long. And so now that Mike can do kind of all of those things, it's better. It'll be better for you, in my opinion.
And is that what's happening now?
Right now, what happens? You've got two different parties, and maybe they talk, maybe they don't, but there can be complications there. Where when Parks and Rec did do it in the past, it was a lot easier because Mike Garrett was the one who mowed it and then lined it for a game, and they just had better communication.
Okay. And has Rick's been looped in on all of this?
Yes.
As far as what this document states? Brian? Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Rick, I don't think, has seen the final version of this, but we certainly will. He's been aware, he's been part of the process throughout it. We'll certainly include him on this tomorrow.
Jenny?
I just have one concern, and does Rick really think that Parks and Rec can manage all this? Because I know in the past there have been times where, like Mountain View's field hasn't been ready for the first home game. And so I'm wondering if we're putting more into the mix, if Parks and Rec really thinks that they're going to be able to handle it and have, because we'll have a lot of baseball fields that need to be done at the same time. And at a time of year when doing fields is really difficult because of rain. So, yeah, I just have that concern, and I wonder if they've really thought about that part of it as far as taking over the entire care of all.
Again, our initial discussions with Parks and Rec, that would not be an issue. We can certainly bring it back and ask for a qualifying opinion. That's what you would like.
I can remember coming to the board and saying, there's some fields that, aren't ready, and there's a opening game like day after tomorrow, and, that's a big issue, so.
Philip, try it again.
And this comes from not having had anybody involved in any of the use in the time I've been in town. The concessions operation over there, does this sort of capture the way it's always existed?
No, this is new.
Okay,
It's
so
somewhat new.
is it fair to say that the district will take over responsibility for maintenance and operations of the fields, but the club will still be able to benefit from the revenue generation piece to the extent that it would like to?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the high school here has what's called a Leo's Club, and that's kind of the junior version of the Lions Club. And about a year or so ago, when the club formed, we talked about the notion of them taking over concessions during baseball season because it hadn't been done for about 2 years. There used to be a baseball, the high school baseball team had a parent group that kind of did that, and they haven't done that in 2 years. So there's been really nothing going on there. We had a quarterfinal game down there, and if it wasn't for Brad Parkhurst selling, I think it was waters and candy bars, there wouldn't have been anything really being sold. So the idea is that would be a fundraising mechanism for a Goffstown High School Community Service Club, the Leo Club, and that they would undertake that, and the kids do want to do that.
Okay, thanks very much.
Frank.
And just a question, Scott on number 8. Is the Lions Club or the Leo Club going to run that thing?
The thought would be that would be the.
Wait, let me finish. The question is, the Goffstown Lions Club, through its youth division, the Leo Club will have the right of first refusal. Is the Leo Club refusing, or is the Lions Club pulling the chains?
No, we wanted, the intent of the language was to give the Leo Club, because we had promised them a year ago that they would be able to run the concessions there for baseball season, give them that opportunity. If that Leo Club decided that they didn't want to do it anymore, then it could be left, another group could step in, but we wanted to give them the first opportunity as we promised them.
Okay, if they don't want to do it, then who decides who the other group is?
Then I would talk to Brian, and we'd figure that one out.
We see the fundraising as a nice opportunity for the kids at the high school. They're engaged in philanthropy work, and this is definitely something that we think is a win-win.
Do you have any additional questions?
Just the process of moving forward, getting a fulfilling number 4, working an MOU between GSD and Tri-Town. Because the two of those in a companion document presented to this board could be voted at the same time.
Has any work started on that MOU?
No.
Okay.
We've met with them. Scott was with us the first time we met with Tri-Town, and essentially the fundamental nature of the relationship isn't going to change. They're still going, Tri-Town will still have the same level of access, the same scheduling approaches of going through Mr. Fountain, but no, we haven't gotten that far of developing that MOU with them.
So do you need something with us for you to proceed to that opportunity?
Well,
producing an MOU?
I think if it's the board's pleasure to approve this, what we'd like to do tonight is approve this, sign off on both the Lions Club and the school district, and then our next steps will be to reach out to Tri-Town and take care of that piece, and then likely bring that back to the board at least as an FYI.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good, but I am not in favor of that process because depending on the MOU that gets struck with that other one may determine whether this is palatable for us. Because we could strike something with them and say, okay, it's no charge to them. I don't know why. What I'm saying is we don't know. I haven't seen the MOU. I'm hesitant to vote on this since it's based on another MOU. I would really like to see that MOU first and then put them both together and say, yeah, they're both approved. Because it's because one is based on the other. And if we approve this going forward, in concept, I'm good for this. If it's the same way we've been given before, the MOU shows Tri-Town kicks in somewhere around $3,000, plus they fertilize the upper field themselves.
Right.
If that's the context of what they agree to, then I'd be in favor of this.
You are aware that you have the opportunity to approve the MOU that comes forward?
Yes.
Okay.
And I think Scott could probably speak to this better than me, but that really was the nature of the understanding with Tri-Town is the spreadsheet that you were just looking at, Dan.
Mm-hmm.
We looked at those costs and Tri-Town said, yep, we're going to continue to pay for these pieces. They're going to continue to use the upper garage storage area. And that's an absolute continuation of what's happening now.
But we are going to meet on the 2nd and the 16th, well before the end of the year. Could we have an MOU before us, like on the 2nd or the 16th?
Sure. That's great. Why not?
I don't know if there's anything time sensitive with the Lions Club.
As long as you get that check to us by, no. I think, I think it's interesting that we've been doing this kind of with a gentleman or gentlewoman's or gentleperson's agreement for decades. It just does memorialize things. We're pretty passionate about making sure Tri-Town gets taken care of because Tri-Town has invested tens of thousands of dollars into that upper field. There are people from Tri-Town who took out a personal loan to do that. So we want to be sensitive to make sure that their needs are met in this. And I don't think that there will be any problem in drafting that agreement with them in a couple of weeks because you just said what was agreed to.
Right.
So it's really nothing that they've been not already doing with the Lions Club. So I don't envision any problem.
So if that's the board's
Anything
pleasure,
else?
we're happy to do that.
What? I'm not really hearing a lot different around the table, so.
I mean, I don't
Okay.
have any problem making a decision right now. But if everybody else wants to wait until the second piece is done, that's fine.
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay. So you'll return with an MOU?
I will.
Okay.
I
Thank
will.
you. Thank you, Scott.
As a quick aside, I do work for an insurance company, so I was a little intrigued by your comment. And I would think that Keith is on the right track. Not only do you have a contract or an agreement with your insurance company, but you have a state statute, which is New Hampshire Regulation 1001 and 1002, which they must adhere to, which supersedes whatever they have in their language. So matching, generally you only repair for what is damaged, but matching does come into play. And it can't be something that's a substantial or a gross mismatch, which to the naked eye doesn't look right. And when it doesn't look right, then you are entitled to make it look right. So what you may have a situation there where they would be responsible for taking off, repainting to make it look right. And again, it's all the judgment is in the eye of the beholder there. So when you look at it and it's a little off, that might be acceptable. But if it's really wacky looking, then you'd have a legitimate
You sound like you've handled a couple of insurance department complaints.
What? I've responded to several of those. So, and I do have your certificate of insurance as an additional insured.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you for coming today, Scott.
All right, guys, new business, Bartlett Field Trip, Museum of Science on December 4th for 3rd and 4th grade.
Well,
This is a repeat trip?
this is not a repeat trip, but if you look at the date.
It's a great date not to have kids in the school, isn't it?
Well, Mr. Bousquet, I would, thanks again, Scott.
Thank you.
Good night, Scott.
Mr. Bousquet has really outdone himself here. And actually, I'm also walking in a second out-of-state field trip request that just came down today. In working with the PTA, they have donated $2,500 to support field trips to the Museum of Science for 4th graders and to the Boston Children's Museum for 1st graders. 2nd graders will be going to the planetarium in Concord, and the 3rd graders are going somewhere, but I'm not entirely sure where it is.
To be determined, right?
So essentially, Mr. Bousquet has managed to coordinate with a very generous PTA to empty the building on our election day. So this will help with traffic, this will help with parking spaces, this will help with getting voters in and out of the facility. It'll, I think it's when Mr. Bousquet came up with this, I thought it was brilliant. And I couldn't be more pleased that his PTA was able to support this.
That is
What election is on 11/22?
What?
It's the 4th.
The 4th, December 4th.
12, December 4th,
Oh, you're
Wednesday.
wrong line.
You need to fix your calendar.
Field trip. Okay.
Good
Sorry.
gracious,
I was
Pete.
just thinking,
So what do we do
All right,
at the
guys.
high school? Do we have a field trip in the high school?
we do on 11/22. I put the wrong line.
Interestingly, if it's the board's pleasure to indulge a minute, the high school, as if it wasn't tricky enough to have the special election, we also have the refinishing of the gym floor that's in process. And we were very concerned that the projected schedule had us applying poly on December 4th. So in working with your outstanding food service director, Megan Bizzaro, and Mr. McBride, we will be having the election in the back the back gym, in the cafeteria, just like traditional elections, and they will be offering lunches outside of the cafeteria and breakfast. So it, again, as if the election wasn't enough, you've got the polyurethane. We were concerned about, people who might have respiratory issues or anything of that nature. To have the fumes in the gym was something that we were very concerned about. And as always, your staff stepped up and found a way to make it happen.
So you need a motion to approve the out-of-state field trip?
We do, since
So
it's
moved.
not a repeat trip, so we do need that motion. So-
Neither, and it's two of them. So it's the Museum of Science and the Boston
Boston
Children's.
Museum.
So I have a motion from Philip to approve the Museum of Science and the Boston Children's
Second.
field trip, seconded by Suzanne. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Bousquet, and
Yes.
thank you, PTA.
Seriously,
Yes.
thank you very
I
much.
don't think
Very
you're going to have to
unanimous
worry
me.
about traffic, though. I don't think so either.
Should we send a thank you note to the
Right.
PTA
I think so.
for doing us a huge
You're not
favor?
kidding. All right, guys, now, notifications,
Diane?
co-curricular, yes. What do you got?
I think I did.
Should we send the PTA a thank you letter
You could.
and just say really are doing us a
I'd
huge
be happy
favor?
to do that on your behalf if you'd like.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Because it's not their responsibility, and that's awesome.
Oh, that's terrific. Absolutely. All right, Brian, we have some co-curricular notifications.
We have co-curricular notifications for sports that haven't started yet.
Hey,
I'm most pleased to be bringing these to you
Ahead of the
before the
curve.
season even starts.
Well, all right.
New sheriff in town.
What's that?
Said a new sheriff in town.
All right.
Amen.
And you'll see there are, I think, only two new ones. Sean Johnson, of course, is a phys ed teacher at Mountain View and is a very talented coach. Meg Norclum, I don't know who,
Norclum, yep.
I don't know her.
She's the
She's,
director of gymnastics at
YMCA.
Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Oh, perfect.
Yeah,
Wow,
so
we're
she's
lucky
got
then.
extensive experience coaching gymnastics. All right, do we have any questions, discussion on these applications? All right, we have student teachers?
Well, all I can say to these student teachers is what a wonderful experience for Nicole Berry to get to work with Mr. Pishka, and for Elizabeth Hiltz to get to work with Mrs. Audley. These are just two remarkable teachers, and what a wonderful opportunity for them to get to be with those two great teachers. They are coming from SNU. Hiltz is from SNU, and the other one is as well. So two from Southern New Hampshire.
All right, any further discussion on that? Questions? Okay. Do you need a motion, Brian? No. All right. Any other business that may legally come before the meeting?
Can we talk for 60 seconds on our upcoming election on 12/4?
Yes, we can.
We haven't been contacted. I haven't heard from the moderator or the school district clerk to find out what our time slots are, if we're going to be available for time slots. We have one more meeting on the 2nd, but there should be at least one board member at each location throughout the day. It doesn't have to be the whole day, but different times during the day. And maybe some of us might be available, I'm hoping at the end of the night, because we are required to sign the boxes when they seal up the box as witnesses.
So I know our discussion has been that we are all planning to be on hand. Personally, I have a little bit of a conflict with the evening, only because it would be a budget committee night
Right.
for presentations. So, it is town side, so I can, kind of go back and forth or whatever's necessary.
Somebody's keeping score. I'll take from the beginning of the day until as late in the afternoon when somebody can spell me at Bartlett, and then I'll come back for whatever we need to do at the end of the night.
Ben?
I can work in Bartlett from 10 to 1, then I have class in the evening, but I'll be coming back from Portsmouth Wednesday night. I can call, I'll give you my cell phone number. You can call me if you need me to come by and sign anything, because I'm usually back in town by roughly 9:30 at night. So.
And it may be reasonable to think that we will need you to come in.
Okay, I can stop by if
Yeah, and you
necessary.
could definitely, double check, but it seems.
I have to go right by there to come home, so I'll just, if it's all dark, then fine.
Well, it'll be here.
No, don't we sign at Bartlett?
No, all the ballots come here.
Okay, well then
They
I'll
get counted here.
Well, Diane, I'll give you my cell, and you can call me.
Perfect. All right. Jenny, I'm sorry, did I say something or no? Okay.
So I can probably start at Bartlett early then.
I can do 10 to 1.
Yeah, and then we'll see what happens during the day.
And we really should. We need to get a schedule. We need to figure out the logistics
Maybe
of
next
what
on the
that is
Monday?
going to really.
On the second.
And we might need to maybe start at least getting our heads around it before then, so we know where all our people are going to be.
If
I
I'm
think
back,
that's
I'll cover
valid.
it. If I'm back, I'll cover this place full day.
Okay.
If I'm back.
If you're back, that's ambiguous?
What?
That's ambiguous?
Virginia.
Yeah. Okay.
And on traffic.
Retta, will you be available?
I am available.
Okay.
I've got it
And
locked out.
Jenny, you are as well?
I need to ask for the time, so
Okay.
if we had an idea of when we were going to need people, I'd be helpful for me to.
Okay.
Would it be helpful for folks to email Mrs. Moran your availability, and maybe we could put together a little chart of who we have available and what your timelines are, and maybe we could send that out to the board?
Because I can be flexible. So it's, it's one of those things where, I'm not going to put my foot down and say, no, I can't absolutely be, because we can figure it out. So that's good that we can as well. We'll do that. How about you, Keith?
I'm probably going to end up with commitments in the morning for work, but I'll figure out my flexibility for the afternoon tomorrow. And I'm certainly in the evening, I'll be here, that's not a problem. I can certainly late afternoon, but how much earlier than late afternoon is what I'll figure out for you.
Never
And
mind
I can
us.
fill
Do you
in
have
at
any
Bartlett
poll
at
workers?
any time.
Because I know it's your thing.
Yeah.
So-
Oh, yeah.
They do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I said, though, bring your cards and your
They're
books
contacting
because
people.
there isn't going to be a traffic jam.
And you're good company, right?
But I don't know yet.
All right. So we have
We should-
concluded
Hope I'm
that
wrong,
We
but-
will be working through each other's schedules. We'll touch base and we'll see if we can't get some sort of a matrix going with who's available when and what a schedule, what a reasonable schedule is going to be. That sounds fair? All right. All right, does that satisfy?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Anything else? All right, we do have non-public this evening, so I will entertain a motion. Enter into non-public pursuant to RSA 91A:3, subsection 2C. It's matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public body itself, unless such person requests to make a meeting.
Yes.
Roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Hank?
Yeah.
Jenny?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right.
We are going to move
Yes, we do.